Hi everyone, okay, it's time for another Bobby Fischer video. This game is taken from the Herceg Novi blitz tournament in 1970, when he had the black pieces against Tigran Petrosian, who is considered to be the best defender in the history of chess. Despite being a blitz game, it's still very instructive. Bobby was the strongest blitz player of his era, and that's very evident in this game, as you'll see. Petrosian opened with c4, and after knight f6, knight c3, g6, d4 and d6, the game has transposed into a King's Indian defense, which was a favorite of Bobby's and an opening he employed throughout his life. I've done 3 videos about the opening itself if you'd like to learn more about it. So then came normal moves for this opening with e4 and bishop g7, but here Petrosian deviated from the main line and played bishop d3. And Bobby wrote in his notes for this game both that this is not the strongest move, bishop e2 instead being the main line, and also that Petrosian had a habit of not playing the main lines during blitz games and saved them for proper tournament games. So then comes c5, d5, black castled, knight g, e2, e6 and bishop g5, which is a system that Wolfgang Ullmann used to use, but one that went out of popularity long before this game was played. So h6 and bishop d2, which is unusual really. Bobby wrote that he was expecting bishop h4, which would have maintained the pin on the knight here at f6 and been more consistent. So bishop d2 anyway, knight b d7 and b3, which is a move that Bobby didn't think was good because it weakens the a1 to h8 diagonal and gives black some tactical chances which he manages to exploit later in the game. And another possibility here was f4, and if Petrosian had played that, then an advantage could have been gained with e5. And after f5, g takes f5, e takes f5, e4, bishop takes c4, knight e5, bishop c2, and knight takes c4 with good play for black. So anyway, the game was b3, then comes e takes d5, c takes d5, and a6, which is controlling b5 so white can't move his pieces there, and also preparing queenside expansion. So Petrosian castles, then came that queenside expansion, and f4, which wasn't a good move. Like, although it stops black from using e5 with his pieces, it's too much of a weakening move. Better here was simply a3, which would stifle the plan that Bobby is about to put into action after f4 was played. He played c4. And another possibility here was b4, when black can secure an advantage after knight a4, knight b6, rook c1, knight takes a4, b takes a4, and rook e8 with good pressure on the backward e4 pawn here, and strong dark square control, as well as damage done to white's pawn structure on the queen side. But Bobby chose instead c4, and he's got a couple of ideas in mind here. After b takes c4, knight c5, which was the point of playing c4, is to temporarily sacrifice a pawn and make space for the knight here at c5. And Petrosian played bishop c2, but better here was queen c2, where black has good compensation for the pawn. So bishop c2 anyway. Then came b4, e5, d takes e5, and f takes e5, which wasn't the best move. Much better was knight a4, and after knight takes a4, bishop takes a4, white would have a small advantage here. So f takes e5 anyway is what Petrosian played. Then came knight g4, knight a4, knight takes a4, bishop takes a4, and bishop takes e5. And here Bobby wrote in his notes to the game that white has no hope, and that's more or less the case. The threat here is both on h2 from the knight and the bishop here, and also on the rook at a1, and now we're seeing the results of the weakening move b3 that Petrosian played in the opening, which opened this diagonal. And playing h3 here would lose the exchange after queen b6 check, king h1, which is the only reasonable move, then knight f2 check, and the rook has to take or the queen is lost. So rook takes f2 and queen takes f2. So how can black defend? What Petrosian tried was bishop f4, but now comes queen b6 check, and black's winning. After king h1, bishop takes a1, queen takes a1, and knight to f2 check, which wasn't the strongest move, although it does win the exchange, like it wins a second exchange. And Bobby wrote in his notes to the game that he should have played g5 here, because now black has absolutely no chance of counterplay. Best play continues bishop g3, f5, and bishop c6 with a solid advantage for black. But the game continuation gives white some play. After knight f2, rook takes f2, queen takes f2, and bishop takes h6, which threatens mate on g7, the queen and the bishop here. So white has the initiative, and it's about equal in this position, because after the only decent move to stop the mate, f6, white wins one of the exchanges back with a bishop takes f8. And here Bobby played king takes f8, and another possibility here was queen takes e2, which is stronger, but presumably Bobby didn't want Petrosian having two bishops for the endgame. And play might continue now, bishop c5, and not bishop takes b4, because then would come rook b8, and black is winning because white can't hold on to the dark squared bishop. The casual move a3 loses to a5, and if bishop c3, then bishop h3 is winning. After g takes h3 to stop the mate threat, queen e4 check, king g1, rook b1 check. Queen takes b1, queen takes b1 with a big advantage for black. But king takes f8 is what Bobby went for. So then came knight g1, bishop g4, queen b1, king g7, h3, bishop f5, and queen takes b4. So now, although black is the exchange up, white does have these connected pass pawns for counterplay, and if played accurately, it should be about equal now, with perhaps even a small advantage for white. We can only assume that they were both in time trouble, and Bobby was known for his lightning quick calculation, and it may well have been that won him this game. So rook a7, bishop d1, queen takes a2, bishop f3, a5, queen c5, rook b7, d6, and rook b1. And with this move, Bobby indicates that he's playing for a draw, because after d7 he has to take with the bishop to stop the d-pawn from queening, so bishop takes d7. And now Petrosian can force a draw after queen e7 check, king h6, and there's many ways to draw here, like bishop e4, and rook takes g1 check. This is the best play, king takes g1, queen takes c4, queen takes d7, queen takes e4, queen d2 check, g5, queen takes a5 is completely equal and almost definitely a draw. Other ways to secure a draw is queen f8 check, or queen takes f6. But in the game, Petrosian took the bishop, and it was a game-losing blunder. After queen takes d7, so now comes queen f2, and suddenly black is winning in every continuation. Remarkably, Petrosian didn't find the best defense and played king h2. Much better was bishop d1, but is still losing after queen e1. So king h2, then comes queen takes g1 check, and now it's fairly simple for black. King g3, queen e1 check, king h2, queen e5 check, g3, rook b2 check, bishop g2, queen e4. And now came the final mistake, queen d5 from Petrosian, because now comes rook takes g2 check, and Petrosian resigned because it's completely lost. So it was an exciting, if not flawless game. I hope you enjoyed that. Please leave any comments or thoughts. Thanks very much.